is their Cordoba creator of the Leicester equaliser. El Khanous, how much room does he have here? El Khanous going for goal, and he finds it as well. What a turnaround here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
4 minutes, Leicester have soaked up so much pressure. Fatawi jinking feet to get beyond his man, and the header from Jamie Vardy makes it 2.
Wood should score. Wood was Knockout. Yes! Anthony Knockout has done it.
Tielemans lining one up. What a goal! What a brilliant goal by Yuri Tielemans! And the Leicester City fans go absolutely potty. The ball in behind Damian Vardy. It's 11. It's heaven for Jamie Vardy. Hold the back page. Hold the front page. A Leicester player has smashed the record.
Hello and welcome back to Blue Tinted Glasses. It is Wednesday night, which means it's time for Fox's Den. Some regular faces and, well, everybody's regular because everybody knows who Chris is. But Chris, it's been a while. I think you came on one of the call-in shows not too long ago. How you doing, mate? Welcome back.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm doing as well as can be expected. I mean, it's not, party time every weekend, is it? But, it's what you get when you support Leicester. So, yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks.
Good. Ragsy, mate, back again. How you doing?
Back again. Yeah, I'm all good, lads. It sounds horrible saying it, but I'm actually looking forward to the international break and just not thinking about football. And actually, even as well, with England, I actually think, we'll sidetrack a little bit for 30 seconds and stuff, but with Tuchel, I think they've actually made the right appointment and actually have been ruthless and seems like they want to win something, even if it's on a short-term contract. So, interesting to see what the squad announcement for that is. But yeah, moving on to Leicester.
Well, talking of international squad announcements, I saw Christensen didn't get a call up for Denmark, but Vestergaard did. Very strange. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. Neil, mate, how are you doing today?
Do you know what? I hate international breaks. I've got to disagree with Ragsy there. But you know what? At least PSG knocked out Liverpool. You know that in Leicester, you've got probably more Liverpool shirts than Leicester some days. So take that. Yeah. But they'll get the lead there, won't they? So.
Yeah. They look good.
Yeah, they did. Although it's not good to have another oil state team win the Champions League, if you ask me. So it's I don't know. Football's rubbish.
Madrid. It'll be Madrid. Yeah, Madrid all day. Quick hello to people in the chat. Mark, hello to you. Felix, Clibbo, Kunal, Clemo, Scott, Tony, Blue Fox Forever, Ray, Ethan, Wolf as well. Hello to you, mate. And quick comment here. We'll talk about this at some point as well. Relegation season on Twitter. We should have played 5-3-2 since Rude first came in, or at least some sort of 5-back. It's obvious. As everyone was calling it, so how did the pros not sit? To be fair, we got 4 points from the first 2 games, so I understand why he stuck with that, but it all went to shit. Of course, it should have changed a lot sooner than it did. Right. Anyway, what we're going to talk about today, because we've had the call-in show on Monday, we had the analysis yesterday. We'll be talking about the Man United game over the coming days, but today I want to look ahead to the end of the season, where most of everybody on this stream and most of you in the chat will agree we're probably going to be celebrating a relegation at the end of the season. Where do we go from there is the question I have for everybody, and I'll come to you first, Anil. I mean, we've been talking all season in a way about rebuilds here and there, what are we going to do at the end of the season if we go down? What do we do with Vardy? We've got these youngsters. What do we do with them? What's the first thing you would do, Anil, at the end of the season when the final whistle goes, relegation is done? I mean, what do we do? Where do we start?
Get a proper director of football in. That's probably going to be quite a common one that people say. But I feel that the thing that's gone wrong with Leicester is that I don't really see what the overarching strategy is as to what we're trying to achieve. I think, to be fair, cast your mind back. I'd especially be interested to get Chris's view on this. But when Kunvichai took over for the first time, I was a bit skeptical. I was like, don't really know anything about these guys. They're coming from abroad. Foreign owners don't typically get English football. And they're already saying, oh, we're going to have this club in Europe. We're going to be, you know, playing in Europe in 5 years and stuff like that. And I remember when he said that we're going to be playing in Europe in 5 years, he did it in 3 and won the Premier League. So I was like, all right, maybe these lads are all right, you know. My point is, though, is that they did actually say that, right? Whereas, look, you may think he's a prick. I kind of do. But Jim Ratcliffe, who's recently taken over at Man United, this week, he done some massive long interview, didn't he, with Gary Neville. And the day after, they presented their new stadium, which is the world's biggest circus tent. And for whatever you think about it, they've said, our ambition is to be the best club in the world playing in the best stadium in the world. And this is our vision, right? And whether they achieve that or they don't achieve that, who knows? What is Leicester City's vision, Logs? Is it to get relegated again? Is it to go to League One? Is it to price out the regular fans that go game to game? Is it to continually play crap football? Is it to be the team that's relegated the most times from the Premier League? Well, we're going to achieve that this season anyway. I don't know. So that's the first thing I would do. And just for what it's worth, I'm not even saying that Rudkin has to go. He could even stay as a technical director. You know, it could be like one of those moves sometimes where it's like, okay, this guy's kind of getting on a bit, but for all the good that he's done for the company and everything, we're going to move him to a role where that's honored, but we need to get someone else to do the strategy. But until we get that, I can Leicester City rebuild and rise again? Not unless we fix that, in my opinion.
Well, Chris, let me come to you because the first thing Anil said is get a better director of football. Now, I don't know what your actual stance is, Chris, on it. I've seen you joke around in the past about, saying, "Oh, Rudkin does this, Rudkin does that. He must wipe Top's arse and all of this stuff," right?
I may have said that. Yeah.
You definitely have. What do you think to what Anil said there? You know, because I think, of course, look. You know, I don't like Rudkin. I want Rudkin gone, but I can also admit that he's always going to be the guy that gets the flack. He's always going to be the fall guy. Everyone's going to say him first. But what do you think we should do with him? Should he lose his job? Should he move elsewhere, maybe in the organization, like Anil said?
The big question is, does any of us know what his job role actually is? Because if you go on the Leicester City website, it says director of football, but it does have no description. And you may think, well, the director of football at Man United does that, or the director of football at Chelsea does that. It doesn't mean that that's the same job role at our club. And it's the same with Susan Whelan as well. Andrew Neville, all these people, we don't know what they do because this club is run in such a cloak of secrecy. You know, it's almost like they've got Harry Potter's invisibility cloak. You know, I mean, how can we criticise somebody when we don't know what they're doing? Let's be honest with you. At the moment, if the bogs in the away end broke down, it would be Rudkin's fault at the moment. You know, everybody wants him out. But what does he actually do? How much responsibility does he have? You know, everybody says about, well, he's paying people too much. The players too much. Well, if the manager wants a player and he said just go out and get him at whatever cost, he will have a limit on what he can spend because Top's not going to let him just go out and spend whatever he wants. So he's operating within certain guidelines. But as I say, I find it, he's a director of football. He will take blame for everything. Funny, he didn't take all the, credit when we were doing well. But I don't know. You tell me what he does, and I can tell you whether he's doing it well or not.
Well, one thing just quickly, Chris, before I go to Rugsy, one thing. In a recent Rob Tanner article, he said that the manager kind of identifies or tells the scouting department, Martin Glover and his team, what type of player or what position he needs. The scouting department come up with a list of names. And then once the manager's decided on who he wants, it is then on Rudkin to actually negotiate the deal, get the deal over the line. So you could assume from that, overpaid players, the wages, certain deals, bad deals, good deals as well. They are on Rudkin from the sound.
You know what it means though, if you assume though, don't you?
Go on.
Assuming makes an ass out of you and me. Look, we don't know that because if he's got a budget to work to and Top said right, you can pay this guy up to 70,000 a week. and he offers him 60. He doesn't want to come. The manager really wants him. He'll go back, and he can't go back and suddenly offer him 90 because he's been told how much he can spend. He's got limits too. So, as I say, I can't say he's good. I can't say he's bad. I just don't know his exact role and his exact guy. And I think Rob, I don't know how much he knows. He's obviously a good friend of all the Leicester channels. But I want to know exactly his job role before I go in too heavy on him.
I think the problem is that we just won't know, will we? We'll never know because they'll never tell us. Ragsy, I mean, I'll ask a similar question to you, mate. What I asked Anil, about come the end of the season and, preparing for life in the Championship once again with players on big wages and probably losing some big players, some important players. I mean, where do we start with everything, mate?
That's a big question, really. I'm alluding to what Anil's saying, in terms of a vision, long-term future, forget the next 5 years. I don't know what the state of a club is going to be in the next 5 months. So how exactly do you even begin to sort of overcome and plan? I look at, in terms of our spending, in terms of our football operations, and, well, with Rudkin, being in the role that he's in, and with Iowa seemingly being separate to all of it and not really sort of being directive in terms of what sort of direction he wants to go in. The way I see it is John Rudkin is practically running the football club as it stands. He's in charge of all the football operations, meaning all the calls are leading up to him, which I believe is flawed. And it can be you can look to, I think I look at both sort of directions here. I think he is grossly incompetent. Just alone, the Adrian Silva sort of debacle, registration in 14 seconds too late. That was under Convici. So even in a stable framework, we've seen how out of depth he is in this sort of situation when it comes to actual crunch time and getting deals over the line. Now, even when we're even in a worsened state, he's still making the same mistakes and it's not learning. So, but at the same time, I do have not necessarily sympathy for him, but I can understand it is a hard job, this one, because you look to Enzo and he sort of called it out in terms of the hierarchy that it is only just him that is practically running it. And he suggested, Enzo at the time suggested, another technical director to come in just to sort of ease off the workload. So let's say if your first port of call is to go for Rudkin, then who runs it? Top ain't going to step in, and he'd probably have even less of a clue than Rudkin does. But and it's not me saying you got to keep Rudkin in. I still think he needs to go, but it's just this whole sort of hierarchy needs to change. And in terms of a solution, I don't think it works out with King Power, and I think they need to sell up. And I'm not going to be that chance.
Oh, he's gone there. He's gone there already. We're only 13 minutes in. He's gone there with the selling the club. Anyway, let me ask. Bring this comment up, Anil. Right? Ray says, when you take a shit, the first thing you do is flush the toilet, clean the house, and start over. Now, I don't know how extreme it will be, Anil, but I don't think a end of season investigation or review. People, I've got balloons on my screen for some reason.
Doubt you'd do that.
An end of season review that we hear nothing about ever again. I don't think that is going to do it this summer, mate. I think we've already seen small protests before the Arsenal game. I think when we are relegated, come the end of the season, there is going to be a big demand for change, and I don't think what we got previously will be enough.
Yeah, I agree, but I don't want to spend all the entire conversation on Rudkin, but again, what I'm saying is he doesn't necessarily have to go. I'm just saying we need to get someone in there to then set the vision. And I think, look, for the sake of this conversation going forward, it's almost let's imagine then that we collectively are the directors of football now at Leicester. What are we going to do to go forward? I think that's the important thing to think of. So that's what we need to do in terms of a rebuild. So, yeah, like I say, I think it comes down to what sort of strategy do you want? How are we going to be successful? Because if we want to rebuild and rise again, and I think we can accept certain things. I don't think we expect ourselves to immediately be punching up and getting into Europe again. Question for the panel: do we expect us to get promoted first time of asking next season? Because I've got a feeling I don't think that's realistic. We might do it. It's not impossible, but I think it depends. You know, I don't want us to get relegated again, but I could see there being some sort of mixture. So what I mean in terms of getting someone in to have some kind of strategy. So if it was me, what are the assets that Leicester have got, right? You've got this state-of-the-art training academy, one of the best in Europe. So that's what we've got, right? We've also got a kind of unique position where there is only one club in Leicester, really, and in East Midlands. So we've got a fairly big catchment area. We don't have too much local rivalry because, you know, say if you're Everton, you're screwed because you've got Liverpool next door. You're going to swipe all the players, right? So we don't have anything like that. So, you know, it's hard to spend and outspend clubs that are making 90 million, 100 million every season from the Champions League because their revenue. So you've got to be smarter and figure out some other way. So I would be trying to model the club and going more the sort of Dortmund, Benfica, Ajax way, where essentially you are going to be the team that develops young players and you accept that you're going to be selling them, right? But the reason why you're going to get ahead is you make yourself a reputation for being, oh, wow, right, I'm 18 years old, or I'm even younger than that. I'm Jeremy Monga. Why would I want to leave Leicester? Leicester City is the best club in England, if not in Europe, to be a young player because you're guaranteed game time. You're going to play. Well, exactly, Chris. You do say the money, right? But Locks will tell you the story about Trent Ione, who went to Liverpool and, you know, they did offer him money and that wasn't enough. So what I'm saying is if you did it the other way, because that's what I feel that some of these clubs do, which is so good, is that they will sell a player to a team like a Man United, a Chelsea, whatever, and then they've already got the replacement there. And sometimes the replacement is even better than the one that they sold you, right? And then they keep developing the players. Like Benfica are masters of it. I don't know how they do it. They just always regen these players. Or even Barcelona, to be fair, they're in massive financial trouble. Like, shit, what are we going to do? We better play our youngsters. And the youngsters are bloody Gavi, Lamine Yamal. Like, have you seen this centre-back that's playing for them right now as well? It's like, Jesus Christ.
Pau Cabas. Is it Pau? Or
that's him. Yeah, that's it.
Pau
They've got so many. Every week you see them, there's some new player that comes off the bench and he's like, who is this? Right. And they're amazing. So look, I'm not saying we're going to be able to jump to that level right away, but if we did something, so there we go. We need to have a production line of young players, right? That's what I'm saying. So if we had a vision like that, and then we're saying, okay, with the squad, we're going to say that we're going to have like 4 or 5 youngsters in the whole time and then mix it out, then maybe that's something that could work. Now, yeah, maybe we should pass to Chris in a minute, right after I'm speaking, because I think that's fair to say with Monga, and would it even work? And I have to say that in youth football, you know, even people might be like, oh, just give them what they want. It's a lot more complicated than that. Trust me, I know I've got friends that work in the game, and like even Arsenal, who right now are way better than Man United, lost 2 of their most promising youngsters to Man United recently. So it's not as easy as you think it is. But anyway, I would set some kind of strategy. That's what I think the strategy should be, built around trying to develop young players, giving them their chance, selling them on. I think that's eventually going to make the team profitable, and then you could invest it. And then look, I'm talking 5 years, 10 years, but that might get you into a position where you could start competing in the Premier League near the top end of the table, which right now we see miles off it.
Chris, obviously, you know, I'll let you talk about that. I mean, the youngsters, because at the moment we do have this state-of-the-art facility, but it's kind of like having a brand new Porsche, but you don't know how to drive. You can't drive, right? Because that's how it feels at the moment. And the first, seemingly, I'll say generational talent, but someone who is so highly, who seems so kind of highly rated, it looks like he's going to be leaving at the first chance, potentially. So what do you think to that about us kind of looking to use our youth development a bit more?
He won't be the first, and he won't be the last. First of all, let me just say that if we do go down, I think we could be out of the Premier League for 10 years. We're going to find an EFL that are going to be waiting for us like the Chow Catcher, a chitty chitty bang bang, with management plans, transfer embargoes, points deduction. I mean, I'm in my early 60s, and I don't know if I will see my club back in the Premier League. That's how bad we are. Anybody decent that we've got, El Canoes, Madsen Manson, we're going to have to sell those to sort of balance the books with PSR. And all with this, with everybody's blaming John Rudkin, but what about Susan Whelan? Isn't she supposed to look after the club? She's the CEO, and yet under her watch, we're being done year after year, season after season for PSR. Anyway, coming back to the youth, thank you, Tony. Checks in the post. What I'm going to say is, Seagrave, I did a show about a month ago saying, is it the biggest white elephant in football? You know, I live just outside Bournemouth. Now, you go to Bournemouth Stadium, I'm sure you all have. I mean, it's three sides and then like a scaffolding, temporary stand that's been temporary the 15 years I've been down here. And yet, they are going to be opening this year a training facility as good as what we have now, and that's Bournemouth. We have missed the boat. We had that. Do we attract youngsters? Yes, because we keep hearing what all these fantastic youngsters we've got. When do you see them? Ruud van Nistelrooy bullshits every week. He comes out with something. Oh, I picked these two players. These two players are going to be in the squad. One of them was. So he named the other guy and then dropped him. Really threw him under the bus. Going on about Monga, the best way for us to try and get more money out is to get him playing. And then, the tribunal can see that we actually, we use him. We had, even under Steve Cooper, who was it the under-17 manager, was supposed to be brilliant with youngsters. Do we ever see any youngsters come up under him? We're producing these youngsters. Well, why not give them... Kyle, you're a gentleman, sir. You're a gentleman. We're supposed to be producing these players. Well, let's bloody see them. Because they can't be any worse than that pile of shit that puts on the blue shirt every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about this so much, Ragsy, about playing youngsters, whether we should do it or not. Some people are saying we should wait until we're already relegated. What's the point? You know what I mean? Maybe that's to try and kind of get them in ready for next season. But, obviously we're talking about the end of the season and what comes next. I mean, how important do you think it is? Because we've seen Will Alves. I mean, very rarely. We've heard about how good Will Alves is. And he's barely kicked a ball for us. Of course, he's had his injuries that have set him back. But, even when he first came through under Rodgers, we heard this, but we got a little cameo and that was it. And then, as Chris said, under Steve Cooper back in the summer, we didn't even loan him out. We did not even loan him out. And then he didn't even play him. And then obviously Ruud van Nistelrooy then loaned him out in January. So there doesn't seem to be a plan in place for these youngsters that come through, Ragsy, which is part of the problem.
No, completely agree with Chris, by the way, in terms of, I just think the treatment of our youth system is just really, really poor. And that's where it's sort of falling away. We're attracting the youngsters. We're giving them an opportunity. We're giving them the best facilities. But then in terms of a pathway into the first team, it's just kind of, they almost have to climb Mount Everest to try and even get an opportunity, a sniff. And it's just it just shouldn't be like that, especially with now. You look at in terms of assets, all right, and you look at it from a financial approach. You keep on persisting via Reeds and, just the pensioners and them, they're depreciating assets, all right? We're not going to gain anything back. We're just wasting on them. So, yeah, why not even just from whatever sort of perspective that you want to look to on the football side, on the financial side, in terms of a vision as well, 100%, you've got to be throwing the kids in. Yes, okay, the pressure is, it's heightened and stuff, and it may be a toxic atmosphere, but at least you're getting model youngsters that are actually going to give a shit and are actually going to fight for a cause and have something to prove on the pitch as well. So when it comes to pressure and stuff, I think, what was his face? Former Dutch player as well. I forgot his face, but he's if you're old enough, you're good enough, basically. Yeah. And it's pressure don't mean shit. So you just get thrown in. You're grasping that opportunity. And by doing this, at least they have some experience in the Premier League. Then in the Championship, then they can start progressing from raw young talent into proper players that can actually compete at a good level. And then they become assets. Then we can sell them on. And then it's just, and for that, it's a never-ending contingency plan as well. And we had that model. And for whatever reason with this club's infrastructure, we just deviated away completely from that and are not utilizing it as well. So when you look to the club and stuff and you're thinking, with PSR and everything, what's the solution? That's the solution there. Just to even gain some profit back, start there. At the very least.
I mean, this is a really good comment here. This is all you need to know whether your summer recruitment was good or not. The last game, one signing out of the 9 started the game. I mean, you can have your debates whether Okoli should be starting or not, but he didn't, right? And it was only Bilal El Khanous, who I think we all agree was the shining light of that transfer window. Just to obviously offer some context as well, Anil mentioned the Troy Nyoni story. Obviously, the youngster who we lost out to Liverpool. The story is basically what I heard was that the club sat down with him and basically just offered him money, just gave him the best financial package, better than any of the other clubs. But when he went to Liverpool gave him a full-on development plan. This is what we're going to do. This is when we expect you to break into the first team playing in the cups, the Champions League, a Champions League cameo here or there. And he chose them. So yes, in a lot of cases, it is just money-motivated players. I think in the Nyoni case, and maybe the Monga one, they wanted a good development plan, which we didn't offer. Now, I want to just move this on slightly, Anil, to recruitment, because you can't just bring players through the academy and expect, you need to buy players too. I think, it's a bit of a myth that our transfer strategy just switched, after Vishai passed away, because we also did have a couple bad windows under Vishai too.
Oh, yes.
After we won the Premier League, for example, that was a horrific one. I mean, we've been discussing it in our group chat this week, actually. Some of the names, Adrian Silva, Slimani, Diabate, Louis Hernandez, all of them. But when we got relegated, Anil, the club were aware of potential PSR issues, but we gave Harry Winks £90,000 a week, and we gave Connor Cody £70,000 a week. Now, one of them players, Winks, was very important in obviously coming up last season, but surely we can't do any signings like that. Let's just say we haven't got an embargo and we will be signing players. We can't be doing that now, because look at how they've transitioned in the Premier League. They've been non-existent, the pair of them, really.
Yeah, I mean, that's why it comes down to strategy again. And that's why sometimes you got to do things that are difficult. Like, you got to say, like, our policy, like, fair play to Chelsea, right? Their policy is they won't sign a player over 25 years old. I think Dewsbury Hall was the oldest one, and they bent that just a little bit because he was English player, can be counted for homegrown, etc., etc. Now, look, they just beat us pretty comfortably, right? In going top 4. I mean, admittedly, they spent $1 billion, which is crazy, but they have a certain strategy and they're keeping to it. Our strategy just goes all over the place. And I've got to say, I don't know about you, but again, it's like this summer, some of these signings, you knew at the time that they were honking. That's why people were really against the signings of Bobby Reid and Jordan Ayew, because it's like it's going against us. It's like everyone in their heads thinking, but if we go down, we're going to have these players. It's just going to be another Vestergaard situation. You're going to have these players on high wages that we can't get rid of. I keep saying they haven't been that good overall, but at least I can understand signings like Daka and Samare, because the upside of there was so high in terms of what you're going to get. And you accept that you can't get every signing right. No club in history has ever done that. Very few clubs even have better than 50% transfer success. Man City have spent 160 million on Grealish and Phillips. I bet they wish they could get their money back for those two. They can't, right? So yeah, when it comes to recruitment, again, it comes down to the strategy, having certain things. I can understand it to some degree, because they've probably said, yeah, okay, if you have young players, you do occasionally need to have some experience. Like, do you remember that Monaco team that got to the Champions League semi-finals?
Yeah.
And they had like Mbappe and had all these like killer youngsters in. Yeah, exactly. He was another great youngster, but they also had experience there. Like, they also had, I think it was Kamil Glik, a Polish centre back. They had Moutinho in midfield. So they did have experience in the right part. So maybe once or twice is okay, but you have to be careful about the profile. So yeah, look, and again, in terms of the thing again that I hate about this summer as well is that our system of play, Enzo's gone for this technical team that's good at playing football, and you have two wingers that are fast, good at one-on-ones. That's like literally, he would have gone to Martin Glover and said, I need you to find this. And that's how we found Fatawu, because he goes, this guy's actually playing as a wing-back, not a winger. But have a look at him, Enzo. Look, he's fast, he's tall and athletic, he's good at beating his man one-on-one. I think we can convert this guy into a winger. And he said, yeah, let's try him. I think I can do it. Instead, who do we sign? We sign someone who's slow, who will never beat a player one-on-one. They have certain strengths, Bobby Ayew. I'm combining the two. Now. That's how crap these players are, right? But what my point is, you know what? I'm not even...
It won't be good.
Individually, right? They might have their strengths in a different style of play. But again, that's where the DOF's got to step in and go, no, hang on a minute, right? My job is above you as the manager. And I'm thinking that, unfortunately, you could be rubbish and I have to get onto someone else. So I need to be building my squad so that it could last for multiple seasons. And so we're always going to stick, like, it might change that. Oh, someone changed it from a 4-2-3-1 to like a 4-3-3 or even wing backs. But basically, we're still playing the same way. So we're going to need the same sort of players and we need these sort of things. And like I say, the best teams that are consistent, even though they have ups and downs, they will always sign certain players yes and certain players no. And they'll make this kind of style and they'll keep with it for the long term. Again, even going back to like previous years, like under Brendan Rodgers, why did they sign Yannick Vestergaard then? Someone needed to step in and say, this guy's too slow. What are we signing him for? Right? We need to sign another player who at least, it still might not work out, but are the attributes there? So I'm rambling a lot, but it all comes down to the strategy. Someone's got to come in there and set there. Someone, if I'm being honest, who knows football, who's done it before multiple times, and I can recognize it. Because I feel less frustrated when I see a player and I go, look, that player didn't work out, but I get it. I understand what they tried for. So like even Kelechi Iheanacho and Patson Daka, who have not made it at Leicester, at least on paper, you could say Iheanacho, under 17 World Cup top scorer, scored a hat-trick for Man City. He could be the Vardy replacement. Okay, he wasn't, but he was young, upside. You could understand it. Daka, he'd replaced Haaland at Salzburg, scoring loads of goals, fast as fuck, cannon foot for a finish. Okay, turns out he's got a touch of a donkey. But again, you could understand. Yeah, but you could understand on paper why he might be in. And I think even Samara, they were like, okay, Tielemans is likely to leave. Maybe Ndidi will leave. Because let's sign a player who, in theory, can play those balls and progress it. And again, he hasn't worked out, but those ones make sense. But the ones that never make sense are these, stupid ones. And over to the next person. I'm getting angry.
Well, Chris. I mean, Anil's speaking there about some of the players that we signed and the potential upside. I mean, what we have heard again from Rob Tanner, that's who I'm using here, and from that article that I mentioned earlier, apparently the manager has a very, very big say, if not the final say on the players. And I think that's been the case at Leicester for quite some time, which would probably explain why our transfer strategy has gone from one end to the other and then back again, because it always changes no matter what manager. I mean, you think back to Claude Puel. I mean, the football was horrific, but some of the players he signed, he knew what he had. He had talent ID, is what I think the kids call it these days, Chris. Talent ID, player ID. Yeah. Talent ID. The Ricardo Pereira, James Maddison. There's more, I'm sure, that aren't on the top of my head. But Yuri Tielemans on loan, of course, he signed him. So, do you think, Chris, that we should stop that, take the power away from the manager, have a footballing operations department, whatever you want to call it, a recruitment department, that no matter what manager's there, they all pull in the same direction, and then there's continuity, rather than signing Abdul Fattah and Mavididi and then going to Bobby Reid and Jordan Ayew?
First of all, I get why we signed. I don't agree with either of those signings. I didn't want either of them, but Cooper, of course, had come out and said, I'm not going to get blamed because I bought youngsters that, can't keep us up. That's why we went out and signed those. And I think Edouard, the mystery man, was just a panic buy. But I think the final decision has to be with the manager because he's got to work with them day in, day out. This was always what was said at Chelsea, wasn't it? They got that many players that sometimes, Cooper, when he was there, walked in and went, who are you? Because these players were being signed not by him. So the final say has to go to the manager, but the manager has just got to identify, like Neil said, and I agree with a hell of a lot of what he said there. He's got to decide on what players he wants or what positions he wants. And then they've got to go back and they've got to come back with a few choices. But the final decision has to be with the manager. And yet managers come, managers go. That we've seen a couple of times where a new manager comes in and somebody we didn't think was very good suddenly is. But he's got to be the manager because he's got to work with them, day in, day out on the training ground.
But do you not think, Chris, that let's say let's just say back in the summer, Steve Cooper goes to the scouting department and says, I want an experienced winger, or forward, who's not particularly fast, but can hold the ball up, maybe offers more defensively, then it should, don't you think that should, for me, it shouldn't be on the manager to make that call. I know that sounds crazy, Chris, and I know what you're saying. For example, Steve Cooper at Forest, but I mean, look how they've turned out now, right? With those players, all those players they brought in, it's actually worked out quite well. So my worry is, Chris, is that if you're not always looking for the same type of player, when a new manager comes in, you're in the shit because one manager might not play a certain way of football that suits the players that came in earlier. Whereas if we look at the Brighton model, Chris, for example, that's the one that everyone's looking at right now, I suppose. You bring in a manager that plays the same way as the manager before him, and because you sign players that play that same way, there's just so much continuity.
There is, but you got to remember we weren't expecting Enzo to go, and then when he did go, they weren't exactly queuing up at the door to take the Leicester job. If there were better managers available, no disrespect to Steve Cooper, would Steve Cooper have got the job? He wanted the job, knowing that we were going to get a points deduction, and that was the big thing. There was not a huge queue. No, the manager, I still say, and I still stand by it, that I want a manager that will say these. I mean, in an ideal world, yes, you will get a manager that comes in that plays the same style, of course. But again, under Enzo, look, I spoke to a couple of Chelsea fans. I'm sure you have. They hate the way he plays football. We loved it when we were 17 points clear. We didn't like it when we just scraped up by 1 point at the end of the season. But the manager has to pick the type of player he wants, whether that's a defensive midfielder, a wing back, a number 10, number 9, whatever. Then he's got to be given a few choices. But as I say, I'm sorry, I've worked as a team leader in a call centre, and I've had staff dumped on me from other departments that I would not have touched with a barge pole, but I was told I had to have them on my team. And they ended up, every single one, it's about 3 of them over a 2-year period because we had a dick of a manager, excuse my French. But all 3 of them ended up leaving because they were just useless. And it a lot of times, spoil the feeling of the whole team working well together.
Yeah. Ragsy, obviously we're talking about recruitment, mate. I mean, what direction do you think the club should go in? Come the summer, let's say. Again, this is if we can even sign players, of course. What would you do? Because do we look at bringing in some exciting players, some youth, but also some experienced heads like we did last season in the Championship? And that was obviously done with the intentions, right, we're going to go up first time. Or then do we just take a chill pill a second, try and build a long-term future starting in this summer. Don't splash 90 grand on Harry Winks, who is going to dominate the Championship, and maybe spend less money on a hidden gem or someone who's going to be up and coming and in the future will be able to play in the Premier League.
Okay, I'll speak metaphorically so we don't get demonetized here. But I want to treat this squad with the Saar bomb, and I just want to drop it in there and just eradicate the whole lot. That's what I want to do. Everything about this culture, I just want a complete reset. Everything about everything. Not everything. Okay, I'll over exaggerate, but just I just think we need to a whole rethink in the way that we do things now. Even if it is just putting in on labels in terms of the principles and the policies that we want to sort of implement into this structure, just even if it's okay, no player signed over 26, wage cut, wage caps just for ourselves, just to make sure we don't go over budget. Even if it's for the experienced players, even if it's for our dream sort of signing, that we ideally would want, but they're demanding a little bit more. Just you got to have a cut-off period. You got to be so strict with it. And if that means that we have to go down to 4th option, 5th option, 6th option, then so be it. And the profile has to be we need continuity there. With all due respect, Chris, I do disagree with what you said about in terms of the direction into in terms of, oh God, I forgot all.
He doesn't even know what he
You were
disagrees
so
with.
outraged he forgot what you said.
I think that's the thing. Is not everything is just said on my days, but yeah. And I just think we need a whole rethink. That means like starting from scratch in terms of basis, sort of lowering the expectations a bit mid-table in the championship. Then so be it. I think we have to have a continuity in terms of the profiling, and I think that's where we sort of strayed away in terms of signing a name and giving managers too much of a say. I think they should have a say in terms of the profiling and in terms of, okay, I really need someone. I need a striker or I need a DM, and and then you leave it to the head of recruitment, the recruitment team, then the director of football to pass it up. The manager can make suggestions, but then it's got to have like a whole sort of process to then be reviewed by the recruitment team, by the director of football, and then if it passes up, then if it's continuous with like what we're actually sort of planning in terms of the profiling and structure of the club, then by all means go for it. But I think it just needs to be a lot more stricter, and I don't think managers should be getting too much of a say as well.
Well, I wouldn't argue with that, but the recruitment team, the director of football, whoever it is, should be coming back. And you said, right, you wanted a striker. This is the budget we've got. We can't go over that, as you say, and that's quite right. We've got to learn to sort of stick to budgets. We don't want any more, although we are probably going to have more PSR points. But these are the players that we are available in that budget that we can afford. Yeah, you can't go outside of that. We can't pay any more, but who do you want out of those? And I still say a manager cannot work with a player that he doesn't want. We're paying 90,000 quid a week at the moment, apparently, to Edouard to sit at home and do his knitting. Because, Ruud van Nistelrooy doesn't want him. And we couldn't get rid of him because of a stupid, the way we signed him. But the manager has got to have the final say. But he's got to have the final say out of the choices that have been given to him that fit into the budgets and the criteria that the recruitment team have discovered.
Well, because I was going to
say, the thing is that what you're alluding to there is that we just have not really necessarily a poor recruitment team, but just a poor direction as to like what we're actually sort of profiling for. It's the misprofiling. It's our sort of strategy of what we're actually looking for. Like Anil was saying earlier, like to be consistent and to actually give the directors that we want for the team fast wingers that will take players one-on-one, and we deviated so much away from that to keen towards like Cooper's approach and then gave him too much of a say. And also he suggested names and they just ran along with it without too much of an objection to it or a review. They were just like, oh, okay, you know what? He's available. No one seems to want him, so we can go and get him. And
it's his exes as well, because it's players that he managed Oliver Skipp for the youth team, the English youth team. He wanted Reece Nelson, who was also a part of that squad. Jordan Ayew, I mean, he's got some. I think he's on the payroll of the Ayew family, Steve Cooper. To be honest with you, he's getting handouts under the table, I think, from them. So, he's worked with these players in the past, and it feels like there's a bit of sentiment there from him. That's why he chose certain players.
I'm sure he started thinking Peter Taylor and Junior Lewis now. But no, you're right, Ragsy. But like I'm saying, he doesn't have a choice of saying, this is who I want. He's got to say, this is what I want. Go and find me somebody. And if he doesn't like any of the three that they come back with, let's say, then they go have to try and find another three, look somewhere else.
And something similar happened to Leeds United, Anil. I don't know if you've heard this story. The year they got relegated from the Premier League, the year he got sacked, he needed a central midfielder. And the club, Leeds United, came to Bielsa and said, Harry Winks. And Bielsa said, I am not signing Harry Winks. He is not going to be my player. He can't run. I don't want Harry Winks. And Leeds United kept saying to him, we've got you Harry Winks. We can give you Harry Winks. And Bielsa said, no, I'm not signing Harry Winks. They ended up not signing anyone from that point on. Obviously, what happened, and I think then the board actually used that against Bielsa in the press. They said, well, we offered players to Marcelo, and he said no, and Bielsa was then coming back and saying, they gave me Winks, and I didn't want Winks, right? So, of course, the manager should have a say in Nil, but again, I think Chris said at the start of Nil that we don't actually know in and out the actual structure, who makes the final decisions, what the strategy is. So it is hard for us to comment, really, too much.
But that's why they need to bring someone in whose job is they have to actually come out. They have to come on channels like this, maybe once per season. We can tone it down. We can ban me from being on there or something like that because of
Definitely ban me.
We can take that. That's fine.
Yeah, Ragsy's out.
It can be a bit more politically correct. We can even say that here are the questions we're going to ask ahead of time, but they allow us to ask some pretty decent questions. But yeah, point is that we need to get some clarity there. So we have that. I mean, listen, I do understand the points we're going here, but I'm just saying, if you look at modern football and you look at the teams that are doing the best, they've moved to this sort of structure because they recognize that, unfortunately, a manager is only a temporary employee. The average shelf life for a manager in the Premier League these days, I think, is 14 months, not even 18 anymore. Right? How long did Cooper last for us, for example, right? So if you know that's going to be the case and you're signing players on 3, 4, 5-year deals, Ollie Skip, by the way, is on a 5-year deal just to make you guys feel a bit better in chat. So if you know that's going to be the case, you need to have someone who is understanding that level of the business or understands even them from an asset value type of thing. Because again, we talked about earlier in the show, being the pathway for the club to use their young players. But you know what, you have to give Chelsea some credit here again. For years they didn't even use their youngsters, but man, they made so much money out of them. It's half the Milan team is these Chelsea rejects, like Tomori, Pulisic, or Conor Gallagher. They sell for 40 million. So it's if you're signing good players, you don't even, that can be your strategy. It can be a conveyor belt. We're just going to mop up the young talent, occasionally give them a game, loan them out to make sure that they increase in value and sell them. We're just there to turn the money over. But yeah, it's funny actually. One of the reasons why Ajax have gone down the bin is they had a really good director of football, which was Overmars, but he kept sending pictures of his willy to the female employees and he got booted out. But actually, when he was in charge, he had an amazing record. He was signing all these quality players. They kept selling them to clubs like, oh, there you go, Man United. You can sign Anthony for 80 million. We'll buy 4 players that are better than that and get better value off them. So some teams have done really well from that. So unfortunately, I would say that I think the manager is welcome to say no, which Bielsa did. I think that's certainly right. But I think that, like I say, the way that I think about it from a club point of view, is the guy who owns the club is never going to leave unless they sell, which we could get to with Ragsy in a moment. Director of football is going to be employed for a minimum of 5 years, maybe even 5 to 10. That's their mandate. And then a manager, you're probably thinking they're going to be 18 months to 3 years. That's likely going to be the case. And so therefore you're building it. And like I say, because Brighton have done this well, is that whenever their man, Graham Potter went, they brought in Roberto De Zerbi and they played better. Because they had in their mind that they knew Potter was going to be wanted. Not being funny or anything, but Enzo's come in. He's the assistant manager to Pep. He's smashing the championship. Come on, guys, right? Do you think Enzo's going to stay at Leicester when already there's rumours of clubs wanting him? They should have been doing a little bit of due diligence of that.
He was linked to Sevilla earlier on.
That's my point, right? It was obvious that, it's a good problem to have, but why were they caught blindsided by that? So
then are the club picking the wrong managers?
Well, who's the DOF and what are they doing? Yes, because we've heard that with the DOF that they got recommended Maresca, where I'm saying a good club should already have in their mind, they should know who the up and comers are. They should have an idea of here's an exciting young manager. For example, Danny Roll, who might end up being a new Southampton manager. It was Ralph Rangnick had worked, Hasenhüttl even had worked with him, and it's you got to get this guy, he's going to be the next big thing. The people in the game, they know who these sort of people are, and you can bring them in early and do it that way. So, and like I say, I've got a feeling that Rudkin isn't actually as bad at certain things as we think he is, but he obviously doesn't understand that aspect of the game. So like I said, he could be in charge of the commercial deals or something. Maybe that sounds terrible to be honest with you, but he can be in charge of some stuff, but he brings someone else in. But what I feel at Leicester we don't have is you need someone who's got that long-term vision of, this is I'll give you another one, right now, Man City are doing this mental stuff where if you look at their under-18s team, they're playing, I'm not making this up, they're playing their goalkeeper on the halfway line when they're in possession, right? Because they're trying to trial to see if the way that the game's going and you need to have another man advantage is can you use your goalkeeper on the attack when you're throttling the other team and they have less than 10% possession. So if they have and it works out, this is whoever their DOF is actually thinking about could be 10 years in the future. And they're instead of committing and buying a new goalkeeper who's even crazier than Edison in terms of his ball playing ability. Let's actually see if it works first, because it might be a shit idea, right? Let's test it with the under 18s team and move it. That again seems like a club that's screwed on, that's thinking ahead and is thinking of what they could do there. Yeah, I'm saying again, it's past to Chris, but that's the thing. It all comes back to that. Yeah, I mean, there you go, brilliant. Rudkin can be in charge of the sandwich. sounds like we've got a winner.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Chris. Obviously, I want to just end on this. I want to talk about this for a second. The future. It's been a big talking point over the last few months. Do you see a world in which King Power aren't the owners of Leicester City? Maybe in the next 5 years, 10 years.
You can never say never, can you? All I would say is just be careful what you wish for. I don't think that the owners are bad. Look, you ask Man United, would they like our owners? Yes, they would. I mean, they are good owners, but they need to have more hands on. They need to look at the people that are running the club for them. Susan Whelan's, Rudkins, people like that, and are they doing a good job? No, they're not. Then they should be gone. How long did that guy stay at Man United that went from Newcastle? Can't think of the guy's name. He was,
Ashworth.
Actually, yeah, he wasn't there long. I don't know what they found out, but I don't want them to go. I don't want them to go because I would sooner have a team that's in League One and surviving than no team at all, because we've gone, did what Leeds did and went out of business and everything. So I just want my club to survive. And look, you never know. Somebody said he was, putting the money back into the club to pay off the debt so that it's ready to sell. Who knows? I hope not. I think we got lucky when Milan Mandaric sold the club to them. Like Anil said earlier, we had no idea who they were. When you look at what he did at Portsmouth, he really sold it to a bad one there. I hope they don't go. I just want them to get their act sorted out.
Well, I mean, Ragsy, this is what I always say. I would rather King Power be in charge of the football club, but they just learn from their mistakes. The problem is that they don't seem to be learning from their mistakes, which then this is why we have these conversations about whether they should be here or not, or how much criticism they have, because they're not learning from their mistakes. I mean, people now, some people now will say, "Oh, they'll learn from this one. They'll learn from this one," and we'll see what happens in a year's time. But I know you feel very strongly on this, Ragsy, and you've said a lot online and stuff like that. So where's your head at the moment?
It's still the same. I will hear with you guys. I don't want it to end like this, but we have to be real here, and we got to remove the sentimentality when it comes to King Power. And if we're really looking at this, it's in two different eras, and people really need to grasp the idea of that. Like Kun Vichai had the vision. Vichai bought the club. Yes, I know he's gone, and God rest his soul. And yes, I will always credit Iowa for stepping up and trying to do his best and take over. But he's clearly out of his depth. And this is no longer financially viable anymore. In terms of solutions, in terms of a directive, and we're not seeing anything. It's all well and good if you come out in the parade over at Clock Tower and stuff, and you're saying this is what we wanted and stuff. But come out now in a moment of adversity when fans are just clueless as to where the state of the club is going to be. Give us something to sort of just latch onto. Just okay, what's coming up over the next
Jim Ratcliffe just did, right?
Exactly. Maybe it was a media disaster class because he's coming off now as pretty grossly incompetent and stuff. But at least he'd come out and said something. At least they've got something now to look forward to. That will actually bring in assets and is, over the next sort of 5-10 years, could be a potential solution to how much debt they're in. We have a load of debt. And, we have provisions for plans, but then they've all sort of fizzled away for some reason.
I was speaking to Leicester fans yesterday about this. Someone said, "Oh, the stadium's happening this year." I went, "Is it? Fuck! It's not fucking happening. There's no chance." No.
Yeah, well, what is it now? And then you hear from Rob Tanner as well, and it's just being like, you're hearing two different sort of mediums here. It's like, oh yeah, we've got money, like King Power of money. They're pretty rich, and then they go on bang on about, oh, when it comes to the stadium expansion, everything's gone up, like with all the costs for the infrastructure have gone up with COVID. Who talks about COVID anymore? Like, it's 2025, it's 5 years ago. Move on. Like, Birmingham City, like, they have provisions to like get direct sort of rail links from Grand Central to their stadium because it's pretty poor. And they want to build like a 60,000 seater stadium. They're in the Championship. They don't know their sort of provisions, but they have a
Who's
plan.
this?
Birmingham City.
League One at the moment. League One.
Yeah. League One. And then they'll probably be in the Championship. But that's what they're heading. That's what they're heading towards. These are the clubs, even in the Championship, that we're probably looking to in the next couple of years, and we're going to be falling behind these lot. So for the sake of Leicester City, like, if they truly did care, at least give us like the best sort of selling point for any sort of prospective owners, and go out there now and seek to the ones that have good means that you feel like can actually do a good job here, and do it whilst we're at least in a viable position. If you want to do right by this football club, do it now. Be prompt about it. If he didn't really sort of like have that sort of investment, then he'd probably dither about for a few years, wait till we're on the verge of administration and probably sell then. Kind of like how Managerial did, and he got lucky.
I don't expect the stadium to happen, and I don't expect, and I don't think it should happen at the moment with the situation we're in. But at least speak to the fans, right? And it's like they're waiting to see how bad it gets before they actually cancel it. That's how it feels. Like, come out and just say, this is what the situation is. We're not going to go ahead with it because of what's happened over the last 3 years. I mean, Anil, you brought it up earlier, the interview that Angus Kinnear, the Leeds United CEO, who's actually now joining Everton at the end of this season, he goes on the Square Ball podcast at the end of every single season, sits down with two passionate Leeds United fans and answers very, very difficult questions about the failings and the successes of the season. He did it when they got relegated. He did it last season when they failed to get promoted. He'll do it this season when the same will happen again. Either they'll get promoted or they'll stay down. And I'm not a Leeds United fan, but I watch it and I'm like, this is so, so good. Watching a CEO of a multi-million-pound football club answering tough questions from the fans. And it just seems so unimaginable that could ever happen at Leicester City at the moment.
It does, but I think they've really got to learn quickly, right? Because the longer it takes them not to do that, they are actually going to force themselves out of the club, because you can tell that that's like the thing that has been broken. I get it. Like, I've worked for Asian companies. They tend to be very private. They don't like anyone knowing what their details are. But it's funny. I see even now a lot of the Asian companies realizing you can't do that anymore. Even in Asia, it isn't working anymore, right? So you've got to start going in that direction. And if Top doesn't want to do it, if Rudkin doesn't want to do it, if Susan Whelan doesn't want to do it, then employ someone to do it, and not the manager, because the manager, like I say, is a temporary employee. Got to be, my name is John Smith and my job is to do this, and I'm going to tell you everything. I can't answer that question. They got to have savvy media training and get that. I think, is it you, Chris? That's what he's saying, get Nigel Pearson to do it, whatever like that. Honestly, I think he would be a very good person to do it, because he built a club once already, and I think he would get Leicester and the fans. But so, there you go. That's my pro tip there, what we could do. But yes, we do need someone to do that, explain it, because I think, again, that they're maybe, again, because they don't actually fully get English football, but I think it's not really a business, right? That's the difference between like fandom and supporting a club versus a traditional business, right? So just because I bought a Volkswagen doesn't mean that the next car I'm going to buy is be a Volkswagen, because I'm not walking around with my Volkswagen FC top going, there's only one Golf GTI. I don't, that's not the sort of world that we live in, right? Or maybe some people do. I don't know. But with a club, right, especially our fans, we know that they, under their tenure, we experience something that will live in our memory. When we die, you're going to get flashbacks of that title winning day. I know I am, right? It's going to be one of the highlights of your life. So we will actually be with you through the thick and thin if you're with us. But right now, they're not with us. So that is, for me, the biggest thing that I want to see change. Because if you get with it, everyone will get behind it, and that's what it should be. So I hope that they do that stuff, and just start by being actually properly transparent, explain the situation. okay, what's the worst that could happen, right? They do all this and people still hate them. Well, people hate them now anyway. And like I say, if they don't do this, what's going to happen is rather than one selling or not selling, is I think they'll get driven out. Because I think it's when it gets to the stage that, like, when fans get like really, really, super pissed, they'll do things like, look what's happening to Elon Musk and Tesla right now. Do you see that one in France where they've destroyed one of the Tesla showrooms and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
It's like people have, and you might think, oh, that's criminal behavior and whatever. And of course it is, right? But the point is that you keep pushing people beyond a certain limit and they're not going to tolerate it anymore, even if you've done greatness in the past,
I was going to say, Neil, and we saw the day of the protest against Arsenal, Top didn't show up. And if that, if there are more of them protests or there's so much toxicity, he just won't come to any more games because he doesn't, whether he was advised not to go for safety or what. I mean, I don't think it was ever going to be that bad. I'm Volkswagen till I die, yeah. Finish it, and we're going to end here, Chris, right? I want to ask you, because you actually spoke to a lady from the Foxes Trust a couple of weeks ago. So that's the homework for everybody who's watching now. Once this stream is over, go and watch that video on LTID. But what impression did you get from her, Chris? When I'm sure you spoke about the communication, things like that from the club.
Yeah, lack of communication. There is no communication. Have we actually got a communications director? The fans
we have, because they called me, Chris. This is a story that I've never told on the stream. They called me like 3 months ago asking where I got the leaked team news from. So there is a guy, and he does, yeah.
Funny that, isn't it? They don't want to come to us with any other news. But the thing is, we'd all understand a lot more if we knew in advance. What I came away with, and she was a lovely lady, Lynn, lovely lady, co-chair. And what I came away with was that it was almost that they're just giving us lip service. It's not that they meet once a month or once every 2 months, which I think it should be. It's a case of, well, if they've got something to raise, they'll get together. Yeah, Susan Whelan turns up. She will discuss things. But I could say, to me, I didn't come away thinking, yeah, we've got a club that's happy to engage. I mean, I got a mate who's a Burnley fan. I lived in Burnley for 20-odd years. When their new owner took over, he created a fans group, and they meet once a month. They have to keep it quiet. They can't go and talk on social media, but they're informing the fans what is going on. And if they do want to release anything, that's the way that they do it. And the fans understand a lot more of what's going on. They're a lot more understanding. But like I say, to me, whether it's a fan group, whether it's Foxes Trust, like I say, I do feel it is literally just lip service.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's people's homework. Go on, do the shout out now, because if anybody, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone does know who you are and where you're from, but obviously give the shout out now.
I'm not that famous. But yeah, find me Leicester Till I Die or LTID on all the social medias and YouTube, and you can find me on those.
Lovely stuff. And over to you, Ragsy, mate. What have you got coming up?
Yeah. So catch us on Fossa through playback. We just did a stream that is like somehow we've managed to sort of like build up the worst 11 to ever play in Prem history. That's been a.
Give us a couple names. Who was on there?
Junior Lewis made it on there.
No, really?
Guys, Benjamin, Akinbaye. Yeah,
we did the same, but I managed to get Wout Faes on mine.
Oh my, yeah. Vass and Vestergaard both made it on there. Probably a bit like Luis Hernandez, but like, I think that might have been a little unfair. And then Patson Daka, I think a bit unfair, but I think some people would agree with that. But the only thing was we couldn't include like the 94-95 season. I wasn't born, so Ryan didn't have too much experience. But yeah, go and watch play back that stream if you want. We'll do a preview for United at home either tomorrow or Friday.
Lovely stuff. And then Neil, I believe this is the last time people will see you for a while.
Yeah, be off for about 10 days. Got to go away on business, so you'd have to put up with not having dad jokes. Sorry, no Volkswagen till I die anymore. In the bin for a while.
There we go. Yeah, just a quick one here. Ray says, this is what
Yeah.
makes these fan channels so important. At least we have a forum. Cheers to BTG, LTID, Final Whistle, etc. Foss Hub. Yeah, any other good ones I've forgotten? Sports, Beyond the 90. I think that's about it. No more good ones.
Sounds about right.
Anyway, there was a question about the match preview. Honestly, I don't know. I need to speak to Luke. If it is tomorrow, it will be 10 a.m. If not, it'll be Friday, 10 a.m. One of the two. Sorry that I don't have an update for you there. But yeah, just stay tuned tomorrow at 10 and we'll find out. So, yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Ragsy. Thanks, Anil. Enjoy the rest of your evenings, everybody. Make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to hit subscribe. We will see you very soon. Bye-bye.